Today we will talk about imaginary and complex numbers. So we start with the square root of -1. We can't find any number, any real number, that when you square it, it equals -1. So to find a number that can do that, we need to introduce a new type of number, and that is the imaginary numbers. So the square root of -1 will be represented by the symbol I. Now, with this type of number, you can do all of the operations that you can do with real numbers. You can add them up to each other. You can multiply them. For example, 2 times 3i is going to be equal to 6i. Now you can also multiply an imaginary number by another imaginary number. In this case, you can multiply the real part to each other. I have 6, and I times I equals I squared. But remember, I equals the square root of -1. So the square root of -1 squared, which is I squared, is going to be equal to -1. So we can rewrite this as -6. Now you can also combine imaginary and real numbers. For example, 2 plus 4i. And you can add it up to another complex number. You add up the real parts of the number, 6 and 4i plus 7i equals 11i. So a complex number is going to have a real component or a real part and an imaginary part. You can also multiply a complex number by another complex number. For example, let's multiply 3 plus 5i times 2 plus 4i. You can begin by multiplying this number with this one and this one with this one. And the same for this one. So 3 times 2 equals 6. And 3 times 4i equals 12i. 5i times 2 equals 10i. And lastly, 5i times 4i equals 20i squared. We can combine these terms. And now remember, I squared equals the square root of negative 1 squared, which is the same as negative 1. So this term is actually 20 times negative 1. So we can rewrite the answer as 6 plus 22i minus 20. Now 6 minus 20, that's going to be equals to negative 14 plus 22i. So to review, I equals the square root of negative 1. I squared equals negative 1. And a complex number is made up of a real part and an imaginary part.